I'm U.S. Senator Roger Wicker, and this is The Elephant in the Room.
Welcome to The Elephant in the Room. I'm your host, Cyrus Pearson.
I'm Sophie Delquier.
She's also a host.
I don't know why I didn't say Omega. I'm
Sophie.
I'm overthinking it with the video.
Okay. That's okay. It's 2024. This is our first episode of our second season, and we now have video on YouTube. Now, I'm still considering this.
And Rumble and all the other places.
If people want to watch,
you can. You have the option.
Fly on the wall camera.
I'm sorry.
Are you thrown off by the cameras?
I am. I'm freaking out.
Ignore the cameras.
Yeah. So today we had Senator Wicker. What did you think?
I thought it was great, actually. There are a lot of things I thought about Mississippi that researching this podcast and talking to him, I came away with a different way of looking at Mississippi.
Me too.
And it's really, it seems to me, you chip away at these, I don't want to call them stereotypes, but these preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And it's really, after this podcast, it's kind of changed in my mind.
Me too. And we did a previous podcast with the other senator from Mississippi, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. And, although coming from the same state, very different conversations and very different perspectives.
Very different. We really focused on ag with her, and we focused on things that you're about to hear about with him. So let's get started. Senator, thank you so much for joining us on The Elephant in the Room.
Oh, glad to be here.
This will be the first episode we have in our second season, so we'll be in 2024. Do you have any traditions that you ring in the new year with?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Well, we have Christmas traditions that our family has done for some 50 years down at my Aunt Norma and Uncle Ken's. And we do it Eve.
So what do you do?
So the 23rd.
That's a long time, 50 years.
And way back when, before she died, my mom did a book of Christmas songs and Christmas carols. And we get together. Sometimes there are 15 people in my aunt and uncle's house, and sometimes there are 30 or 35. And so we make requests, and we sing till we get tired. And then we always end up with the 12 days of Christmas, and we make sure that we mess it up pretty bad. So, it's no fun if you do it just right.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Right.
And it's interesting. We've taken in the last 15 years or so to adding a Hebrew song that my sister taught her students in public school music, Hava Nagila. So here we are singing Christian Christmas carols, and then we spring into Hava Nagila. And then my aunt always requests from Fiddler on the Roof, If I Were a Rich Man. And I really don't know how that ever got started, but
I love that.
It's a tradition. So, yes, and this year, all 8 grandchildren will be in Tupelo, Mississippi, with Gail and me. We have 3 kids and 8 grandkids. 2 in Washington, D.C., 2 grandkids.
Oh, wow.
My son's wife and daughter are up here. And then my 2 daughters live in Jackson, Mississippi, about 3 miles away from each other. And that's the other 6 grandchildren. And I will tell you, Evelyn Sims, 10 years old, scored the winning 2 free throws just the other night in 10th grade church basketball.
Congratulations!
Wow.
She's really more of a defensive player, but this is Evelyn Sims, and she stole the ball, broke loose toward the other end of the court. Went up for a layup and was fouled with 4 seconds on the clock, and she iced it, made both free throws, and her team won in overtime 12-10.
Amazing.
Big time. They're not big scoring games at that age, but they're important. Each one's important. That's
well,
amazing.
of course, I just heard about it because
Yeah.
I had to be here.
Oh.
But I can imagine it. I can imagine the ice water in Evelyn's veins as she went to the line there. And a friend that's the age of my children told me all about it. I said, well, Joe, she inherited that. And he said, well, I never saw it in her dad. So.
A lot to dig into there.
Yes.
We were commenting how great your voice was when you read the intro.
Well, how nice of you to say that, Mike.
Are you a singer? Are you in a choir somewhere?
Yes, I do enjoy singing.
Okay.
Yes. And,
when did you start that?
Well, I've always sung, but youth choir, First Baptist Church,
Yeah.
Pontotoc, Mississippi, Pontotoc, Chickasaw word, and high school chorus, and I've just always enjoyed singing, and I still sing in the church choir at First Baptist in Tupelo. I'm seldom there on a Wednesday night. Guess why? That's
Up here.
I'm up here.
Yeah.
So we're actually recording this on a Wednesday afternoon. Randy, I'll miss choir practice tonight, but they're nice enough to allow me to show up in the choir loft at 8 in the morning on Sundays for early church, and so I still sing in the choir. Yes, and occasionally I've been known to take the stage.
Okay.
With a little group that I'm in called the Mississippi June Bugs.
Fun!
We will be celebrating our 5th anniversary this year, and actually it will be in Tupelo, Mississippi,
All right.
which is the home of the king, Elvis Presley.
Oh, that's
right.
And so...
Do you do Elvis?
So it runs in your blood.
Well, and of course, I play an instrument.
Oh, you do?
I did not know that.
Yes, I play percussion, the tambourine, something that you don't have to. You don't have to have any talent.
No, I don't know.
Just a little rhythm there. But I sing back up, and a couple of times they'll let me sing a solo. For example, this year in June. In Oxford, Mississippi, I sang the perfect country and western song. You Don't Have to Call Me Darlin', Darlin', made famous by David Allan Coe. So it was.
Did you sing the extended version?
I absolutely did.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that song?
I don't.
You have to hear that.
Yes. It's at any rate, I was pleased that with some very good talent on stage, they let the old guy sing.
Well, speaking of
I love
stage, there's something called Will on the Hill. You're familiar with this?
Well, I am familiar with this, and there's a group in the District of Columbia that raises money to bring children into the arts that might not have an opportunity to.
I didn't know that was the point.
So that's the whole point.
Okay.
It's done at the Shakespeare Theatre, at the Harmon Theatre.
Just around the corner from here.
Endowed by the husband of my former colleague, Jane Harmon, retired congresswoman from California. And this group teaches young teenage kids how to act and be on stage and sing and perform, and they learn to do some highbrow Shakespeare. And then once a year, when we don't have COVID, we do a program, and they bring members of the House and Senate on stage, and also some notable people from various.
I actually think that I've been to one of those, unbeknownst to me. I went to a play at the Shakespeare Theatre. This was years ago. It was before I was even in politics. And so I think I actually saw one of those plays without knowing.
Then you saw that the acting was enthusiastic, but we shouldn't quit our day jobs.
Exactly right.
Really, the whole idea is that everybody that comes to that performance pays an admission fee to help these children. It goes totally
Yep.
to the kids, which is the whole point.
Well,
Wonderful.
how long have you been doing this? A couple years ago, you had Justin Guarini as William Shakespeare. And if you don't know who that is, he was the runner-up on American Idol and plays Lil Sweet on the Diet Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
You know, I
Do you
think
recognize
I think I may have missed that.
Yeah,
I may have
me
missed
too.
that one. Yeah, one year I did have COVID, but generally speaking, there might be 25 House and Senate
Yeah.
members and maybe a newscaster or two, and it's all in fun, and it's not taken
Super
very
cool.
seriously.
Super
Yeah.
cool.
The idea is laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk, and we do have a lot to talk about, actually, Senator.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Yeah, that's it.
Dang it, it always happens.
Make
to
it in
us.
time for choir.
You're a fan of Ole Miss football, and I did not realize University of Mississippi, Ole Miss Grove tailgating,
Right.
according to my research, has been called the holy grail of tailgating.
Oh.
Now, Sophie doesn't follow a lot of sports, but I'm sure you can get with this. ESPN ranked the Grove as the number 2 college football tailgating spot in the country.
I'm outraged.
Well, Sports Illustrated ranked it number 1.
Well, that's better.
So, can you tell us about the Grove tailgating?
Well,
What is
okay,
that?
let me hasten to say
Okay.
we have a lot of wonderful colleges and universities
Oh, yes.
in the state of Mississippi. And their students and their alumni all vote. So, I want to assure you that when it comes to federal programs, when it comes to providing an opportunity for students and faculty to do research, which turns into cures for disease, which turns into innovations in manufacturing and all sorts of job creation, we are very much nonpartisan.
I've actually heard you actually work together. I mean, you make sure that everything works together because you want to be one of the few states where somebody can come and they do business. You've got all the resources there.
True, and as a matter of fact, a number of our universities are putting together a proposal with the Commerce Department to be one of the tech hubs under the recent tech and science legislation that was passed a couple of years ago. But when it comes to sports, yes, everyone knows that I'm an Ole Miss rebel. I went to undergraduate school there. My dad went there after World War II. He did 2 years of junior college and then went to Ole Miss and got a law degree. And so I got a BA degree and a Juris Doctor from Ole Miss, and I do enjoy Ole Miss sports, but I can tell you I also enjoy going down to Mississippi State and watching them play football and basketball, and I never go when a Mississippi team is competing against another Mississippi team. Can you imagine why?
I mean, you'd have to choose a side, wouldn't you?
No.
Smart.
You watch that one on TV.
Yeah,
But
very smart.
Ole Miss has had a very good year, 10-2 in football. And as we record this, Ole Miss is scheduled to play Penn State on December 30th in the Peach Bowl. At the time this is broadcast, we'll know who won. But
He knows his stuff.
As we speak, Ole Miss is ranked 10th in the nation, and we are hoping to advance just a bit. And then next year, there'll be the playoff.
Oh, that's right. They're implementing a playoff
not
system,
just
Sophie.
4 teams.
Yeah.
But there'll be
So once you prove
the
you're
top
good
12
enough.
and so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'll be at the tailgates.
A big moment for us last year was winning the national championship in baseball at the College World Series in Omaha. And you know what? Mississippi State won the College World Series, the national championship in baseball, the year before.
Wow.
So, pretty special.
A lot of good sports coming
Absolutely.
out of there.
We do have a lot of good sports. A lot of good college sports.
And Sophie, I mean, you probably don't know a lot of athletes. This is not an insult, Sophie.
Yeah, I just don't follow sports.
I have to ask if this is
I mean, how
true,
could
though.
that be?
Well, I went to GW. There's not a lot of sports teams at George Washington University, and I'm half French. It's not in my culture. But my fiance's family, they're from Ohio. They have the Ohio State, Michigan,
yes.
the whole thing.
Now,
So I
that's a
enjoy.
rivalry, yes.
Yeah. So I enjoy the culture. I'm just not fully immersed in it yet, but I'm getting there. I'm learning. The podcast is helping.
Good. Well, I'm happy your friend is from Ohio, but I can tell you that college football and college baseball and basketball are big time in the state of Mississippi.
I don't want to snub
yes,
the other colleges. I want to ask if this is true, though. In tribute to the Ole Miss legend Archie Manning, who was a quarterback and the father of Peyton Manning and Eli Manning,
Right.
he wore the number 18. Is the campus speed 18 miles an hour in homage to him?
Absolutely.
He ran 18. What?
He wore the number
Well,
18.
he wore the number. That was jersey number, and yes, he was so admired that the speed limit in many places where it doesn't need to be 30 is 18.
Is it really?
Archie Manning and I are fraternity brothers,
No way.
as is Eli Manning. So Eli Manning, Archie, and I are Sigma News loyal snakes at Ole Miss.
We won't talk about Peyton. Let's just move on.
Well, Peyton is a very fine guy. He went to Tennessee and he did well, and won 2 Super Bowls, as did Eli Manning for the Giants. So we and as a matter of fact, I can tell you, Dak Prescott, a graduate of Mississippi State, is the first string quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And as we record this, I can say that his Dallas Cowboys have come on strong in the last few games, and perhaps after the first of the year we'll know how good they are. But Ole Miss and Mississippi State have just a world of first string college athletes, particularly football. I could go on and on, but we produce football players par excellence.
We would go on and on, but I don't want you to cut us off for real a second time here yet. Before we get to some of these other things, so I want to talk about things that people may not think about in Mississippi. I think things are probably changing from at least what I've read. You would know better than me. There's a guy, Joe Donovan, the director of the Mississippi Development Authority, Office for Technology, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. He says Mississippi is a technology state. We just forgot to tell ourselves and the rest of the world.
Okay.
And then you got another guy, Tony Jeff, president and CEO for Innovate Mississippi, says, we need to tell the story better about how the many great companies we have here are centered around interesting technology and good jobs. Lots of opportunities here. You want to talk about Mississippi being a technology state?
Well, absolutely, and
we know it for ag,
and it's and we're proud of our ag, no question about it. Boy, I wish I could. I wish I could tell you a couple of things that are in the offing.
For their secret.
Early
you can't, okay.
2024.
Ooh.
But let me just say, I think there are going to be a number of very, very important announcements sometime early in 2024 that will add to this.
This will make good press for the podcast.
Okay, well, yeah. So, but let me give you an example. A company from California that makes underwater drones and sea surface drones.
Wow.
They're both. Just moved from California to Mississippi, and they are involved in manufacturing right there in Mississippi. The only drones so far that the federal government and our military are using right now that can go subsurface and go on the surface of the ocean, and because they're not horribly expensive like a submarine or a destroyer, we can use them more readily, and because they're unmanned, or I'll say uncrewed, we can put them in riskier situations. That's just one example, and it goes everywhere from one of the biggest shipyards in the country, which is Huntington Ingalls Shipbuilding in Pascagoula, Mississippi, to radars made in Forest, Mississippi, to the Stennis Space Center down in Hancock, Mississippi, which is becoming more and more a federal city. It's not just NASA, which tests almost every rocket that NASA sends into space, but is more of a federal city. So you have agencies like NOAA, the National
I'm blanking on it right
Administration.
now. Yes,
Oceanic and
Atmospheric
Administration. Yes, clean that up.
Good thing they have a 3-letter acronym because
National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. There you go.
Perfect.
And so yes, and also one thing that I think someone looking at high tech should know about Mississippi is we are at the intersection of a huge network of fiber that comes from Chicago down south to the Gulf Coast to New Orleans and goes from Dallas over to Atlanta. And they intersect right in the county where our state capital is.
Wow.
So I'm just pretty sure that there are going to be some of the biggest names in high tech that are going to be looking at that intersection as a great place to look at tech hubs and things like that.
Makes sense.
So yes, we still grow things and we do it well, and we conserve the land, and we're the best stewards of it. We have a lot of forestry, but yes, we are moving very much into high tech. And we've talked about Mississippi State and the University of Mississippi, which we all call Ole Miss, but there's Southern Miss, which is in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and they were nice enough to open just recently the Roger F. Wicker Center for Ocean Enterprise.
A dedication in your name.
Which,
I saw that.
That's right.
I did not ask for and did not expect, but I did. At one point in the past, somebody said you ought to be gracious enough to accept a compliment when somebody offers it, and so I was happy to accept that compliment, although I did not seek it or ask for it.
That's
It's
wonderful.
cool, though.
Congratulations on that.
But the blue economy is going to be huge.
That's the water.
It is going to be a building that houses various companies and agencies that are involved in ocean enterprises.
Okay.
Like, for example, more subsurface drones or more research. And what a lot of people don't know is that the surface of the ocean and the seas is little discovered. After all of this time, we know more about the surface of the moon. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do the bed of all the oceans. So because it's so vast.
Yeah.
And when we talk about rare earths that we're going to need, this is a great opportunity to remove our dependency from some countries that we don't particularly get along with. And there's just it's an endless opportunity as we explore this last frontier, and much of that's going to be done right there out of Harrison County, Mississippi.
That's so fascinating.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah, I've seen that before, and I think it's also there's a lot of tech that functions okay in the vacuum of space, but the atmospheric pressure is just so, I guess, high down in our oceans.
Well, also, if we find something on the moon, you got to get it back. You know, mine it. It will just be a lot, I think, more economical to get it from the surface of the ocean.
Right at home.
If we're careful about it.
Yes.
We have to be careful.
Wow, it's fascinating.
I have a couple things I definitely want to get to before we end. Let's chip away at some of these maybe misconceptions. Let's talk about education in Mississippi. There's a guy, Phil Bryant, wrote on RealClearEducation.com.
Our former governor, yeah.
Okay. Mississippi's dead last ranking in the U.S. in overall education was once a familiar statistic, but recent test scores reveal the incredible new reality of academic prosperity for students in the state. According to the 2022 National Assessment of Educational Progress, Mississippi fourth graders, when adjusted for demographics, are ranked as the nation's top performers in reading and second in math. And he says victories of this caliber do not happen by accident or overnight, the result of hard work, dedication, and years of legislative battles and implementation.
Well, they certainly don't happen overnight, but he's right on track. Phil Bryant served 2 terms as governor. The good thing about what we've been able to accomplish with certain elementary groups is we had some benefactors that came in,
Okay.
In a very helpful way. Chief among them, Jim Barksdale, who is a probably 7th or 8th generation Mississippian. His ancestor was General Barksdale from the Battle of Gettysburg in the Civil War, but he's made an enormous amount of money. God has been overly generous to Jim Barksdale in terms of what he's been able to do financially, and so he's pretty much semi-retired back in Mississippi, and started the Barksdale Reading Program.
Okay.
And basically, he set out to prove that big city, inner city kids can absolutely learn to read just as well as anybody else if you put your mind to it. And so part of what the government has done, that Governor Bryant is so pleased about, has also been facilitated by this great benefactor, Mississippian Jim Barksdale, putting his money where his mouth is and saying we are going to prove that a generation of excellent readers can come along out of the public school system.
Wow.
And I'm all for alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my grandchildren go to public school, and some of them go to private school. And I'm a graduate of Pontotoc High School public school. But the vast majority of our young people are going to be educated in public schools, at least in Mississippi, but for financial reasons, because that's what their parents can afford. Mm-hmm. And we are showing that in so many areas, our kids that have gone through the Barksdale Reading Program, can score, maybe not all of them, maybe not all the schools are second or third or so in the nation, but in the top 22 out of 50 states,
That's
things like
good.
that, and doing better. So hats off to the state government for being a part of this, and big kudos to Jim Barksdale and the Barksdale Reading Program. I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't ask that you put that on the agenda, but yeah, it's a wonderful achievement.
We didn't really give you much of a heads up.
Yeah, you actually didn't ask for anything. And
Yeah.
I had one more thing I wanted to cover, and I'll be really happy if we actually even got to this point. If people look at your bio, you've been recognized as a champion of polio eradication for your work to wipe out polio worldwide. Also, you're the co-founder of the Senate Malaria and Neglected Tropical Disease Caucus and the co-chair of the Rare Disease Caucus, and heavily involved in muscular dystrophy research.
Ah, yes.
I'm just curious how or why you got interested in rare diseases and disease eradication. It's great, but I don't
yeah, it's interesting.
My dad never sang me songs at night. After prayers, he quoted poetry. And Emily Dickinson said, if I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one soul the aching, or cool one pain, or lift one fallen robin into its nest again. I shall not live in vain. So if I, as a legislator, can take a tiny bit of tax money and put it on our worldwide effort, along with the Rotary Club and all these civic organizations, to wipe out polio, or if I can look at a dad who's come to see me about his son having Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and put some money into some centers of excellence around the country and actually make a difference, then regardless of whether my bill passes on this, that, or the other, I have not lived in vain. I've stood for something, and I think the American taxpayer agrees with that. Since we started on the rare disease of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, mainly affecting little boys, some girls, but little boys that we find out about at age 2 or 3, their life expectancy was in the high teens, and that was about it. Because of these centers of excellence and working with senators, I was a House member at the time, those young children are going to college now, and they're going to graduate school, and they're sitting at a desk, at a computer, earning a living. And not only have their lives been enriched, and their families certainly, but also society benefits. They add to the commonweal of the country. And so, yes, I'm glad to have been part of that, and I've had a lot of colleagues who've helped too. So don't give me all the credit. Although I was able, I think, to give the quantum push on the Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy Act.
We'll give you some credit.
Okay, I'll take a little bit, but I'll share it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Also, related to that, I really enjoy history. I don't really know that much about it, but I really enjoy it. Polio is not history. It still exists in the world.
Yeah.
But to a lot of our listeners that are younger, and to people we work with who weren't alive when 9/11 happened, polio is kind of an abstract concept. It was alive. I believe you were probably in your late 20s when we had the last reported case of it in the U.S.
Well, when I was a teenager, a real innovation, advancement came along with the Sabin oral vaccine. And I can remember going to high schools and standing in line, and the doctor put some drops, or the nurse some drops on a sugar cube, and most everybody that was willing took the Sabin oral vaccine. Before that, it was Jonas Salk who did the vaccine in the arm. Mitch McConnell was struck by polio when he was a little boy. And so that's why sometimes when he's not real steady on his feet, he is suffering from the remnants of that. Steve Cohen, my House colleague from Memphis, Tennessee, which adjoins Mississippi, is somewhat older than I, but he had polio as a little boy. So there's still a generation around who were affected by that. And I can remember in the summertime, we didn't have a lot of advanced knowledge, but for some reason they would tell all the kids around there was polio going through it, so don't get out in the yard, don't play in the sun. I don't know if that was good science, but I do remember polio epidemics coming through entire communities.
And so do you remember?
And more people than you know actually had that. We hardly ever hear about it. We haven't had a case of polio in just decades in the United States. Maybe some of the poorer areas of India and Africa still have it. And we've had a little backtracking because of the COVID epidemic. But Rotary, my hat is off to Rotary. I'm not a member of the Rotary Club. I was a member of the Lions Club myself back when I was a small town boy. But Rotary International has been a bunch of heroes in terms of fighting polio for decades and decades, and we'll win it someday.
Sophie, I've got more. I haven't let you get to all your stuff. What would you like to?
Mine are silly. I was reading up on wildlife in Mississippi. I was shocked that there are bobcats, snakes, bears. This is really news to me. I think a lot of people think of Mississippi as more agricultural land, but you mentioned forestry. I mean,
well, you didn't mention deer.
So I saw
when,
that.
When I was a young boy, and my dad started hunting deer, there were hardly any.
Really?
And now we're covered up with them. Yes. As a matter of fact, on some of the parkways at night, like the Natchez Trace, which is a really good thing to visit for your listeners, the Natchez Trace. It goes from Natchez, Mississippi up to Nashville. Sometimes at night you need to be careful. A deer might jump out in front of you.
You actually have more white-tailed deer
there you go,
than any other state.
Come to Mississippi
in density.
During deer season, and we'll
take
we'll
care of that problem.
happy.
All the hunters, take care of that problem.
Hours open longer? Is it a longer season? Wow. Tell our listeners about Natchez Trace.
Well, the Natchez Trace is an old Indian trail.
Oh.
That went from what is now Natchez, Mississippi, on the Mississippi River, one of the oldest cities on the Mississippi River, about as old as New Orleans, actually, all the way up to Nashville, to what is now Nashville, Tennessee. And some 70, 80 years ago, an effort was made by a Mississippi congressman named Jeff Busby and others to pave the trace and make it into a national parkway. So it is one of the largest parts of our national park system, because it's a whole highway from the Mississippi River up to the Cumberland River in Nashville. But all sorts of history there. There was a movie made about Meriwether Clark of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and at one point, President Thomas Jefferson made him governor of Missouri, and it turns out he was a better explorer than perhaps administrator. Came into some criticism, and fell into some depression. Took the river down to Mississippi, went over to the Natchez Trace, and after he crossed the state line into Tennessee, was found dead one morning. And there's been a mystery ever since. Did he commit suicide? Was it a robbery? Was it some sort of accident? It's a mystery. But that's where the famous Meriwether Lewis of Lewis and Clark died, on the Natchez Trace.
Wow.
Between Natchez and Nashville, Mississippi. A lot of history there. A lot of great people and a lot of ruffians and ne'er-do-wells, as you can imagine, back in the old days when there wasn't when the park rangers weren't roaming.
Well, Mississippi is actually a Native American word.
Yes.
Can I ask you what it means?
Well, my goodness, I would have to resign from office if I didn't know.
Pop quiz.
The father of waters. Yes.
Father of waters.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, you mentioned church. There's another fun fact about Mississippi. There are more churches in Mississippi per capita than any other state in the country. So, and also Mississippi residents go to church more than any other state.
Well,
so,
I would rather live in a state like that. Wouldn't
too.
you?
Yeah.
And John Grisham is another one of our great Mississippians.
Wow.
I was in the legislature with John Grisham, and he served as a lawyer and legislator for a while until he started making so much money writing books. But one of his novels involves a young journalist who comes into ownership of a local weekly in a small town. It's called The Last Juror. And because he's not very religious, this young editor decides that rather than join a church, he'll just go to every church in the county and write about it every week in
Oh
his
my
little
gosh.
weekly newspaper. And it took him, I believe, I haven't read the book in a long time, it took him over 2 years to visit every church in the county and write about it. Some were big.
That's amazing.
Like the church I go to, First Baptist, and some were small little Pentecostal or missionary Baptist churches.
Wow.
But he almost never got to the second round. A lot of churches.
Senator, we told you and your staff about a half hour, and I think we've gone about 40 minutes. Thank you. I still have other things to talk about, but maybe we can end with your final thoughts of what you'd like the rest of the nation to know about Mississippi.
Well, it's a great place to live, and I will tell you, if you've got a job in Mississippi, you live better than 99.9% of the people that have ever walked on the face of the earth. We believe in hard work. We believe in building on that number of jobs, but there's good quality life. It's a great family state, good conservative American values, and it is such an honor for me to stand in the shoes of people like John Stennis and Trent Lott and Thad Cochran and others who've come before me, and to serve for a little while in this temporary place.
Wonderful.
Senator, happy 2024. Thanks for your time, and thanks for being the guest today on The Elephant in the Room.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to hear from the other Mississippi Senator, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, you can listen to episode 108 of The Elephant in the Room. Any last fun facts about Mississippi before we end, Sophie?
Okay, I'll give the fact and you give the fun.
Okay.
In 1902,
Yes.
Teddy Roosevelt refused to kill a trap bear while hunting in Onward, Mississippi. I thought that was the fun fact in of itself, but
Word is this event inspired a Brooklyn candy shop owner to create a stuffed Teddy's bear, and teddy bears then became a hugely popular toy throughout the world.
I mean, everyone had a teddy bear.
And that's related to Mississippi. You want to hear more could-be-true facts like that? Please like and please subscribe to the episode. We are in 2024 Season 2. We are now available on YouTube and
Rumble.
so you can watch it. We're still going to consider this an audio podcast. Let's do some credits. The Elephant in the Room is brought to you under the direction of U.S. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Our executive producer is Arjun Modi. Our show producer is Carly Rapp, and our technical director is Rashad Smith. Thanks for listening, and until next time, this has been The Elephant in the Room.